I try not to judge a book by its cover, but it turns out I do judge it by its layout. Hello, everyone. I want to talk today about a few things that I like about a couple of Catholic Bibles that I've recently come to own. One of which I spoke about recently, as I have switched to reading from this Bible for morning and evening prayer, because I like the translation, but maybe even more so, I really like the layout of the book. And that makes a big difference, I'm finding. One of the things I like most about it is the way they render parts of the Bible that I till now hadn't thought of as song or poetry, but they render these bits of prose in such a way that it makes you read them as poetry, and that somehow changes how you read it and how you experience it. Readings this week in my lectionary in the 1662 Common Prayer Book are from the Book of Ruth for the Old Testament reading. It's a beautiful story. It's one of the most beautiful stories in the Hebrew Bible that most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with, at least the rough outlines of. Something about the layout of this Jerusalem Bible and the way it renders into poetic form. And this Bible does this in a lot of areas, not just in Ruth, and not just in where you'd expect in the Psalms or even Isaiah and things of that character, but places where you wouldn't ordinarily expect to see a poetic rendering. So anyway, I'm going to read just the, as briefly as I can, just the beginning part of Ruth from this, and so you can get a sense of what the translation sounds like, that it also is a lovely translation, in my opinion. But just kind of look and see how they lay it out and what parts they consider to be poetic, and see if that changes the way you experience it. So this is the book of Ruth. In the days of Judges, famine came to the land, and a certain man from Bethlehem of Judah went, he, his wife, and his 2 sons, to live in the country of Moab. The man was called Elimelech, his wife Naomi, and his 2 sons Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem of Judah. They came to the country of Moab and settled there. Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she and her 2 sons were left. These married Moabite women. One was named Orpah, and the other Ruth. They lived there about 10 years. Then both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and the woman was bereft of her 2 sons and her husband. So she and her daughters-in-law prepared to return from the country of Moab, for she had heard that Yahweh had visited his people and given them food. So with her daughters-in-law she came away from the place where she was living, and they took the road back to the land of Judah. Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to her mother's house. May Yahweh be kind to you, as you have been to those who have died, and to me. Yahweh grant that you find rest, each of you, in the house of a husband." And she kissed them. But they wept aloud and said to her, "No, we will go back with you to your people." And Naomi said, "You must return, my daughters. Why come with me? Have I any more sons in my womb to make husbands for you? Return, my daughters, go, for I am too old now to marry again. Even if I said there is still hope for me, even if I were to have a husband this very night and bear sons, would you be prepared to wait until they were grown up? Would you refuse to marry for this? No, my daughters, I should then be deeply aggrieved for you, for the hand of Yahweh has been raised against me." And once more they started to weep aloud. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law and went back to her people, but Ruth clung to her. Naomi said to her, "Look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her God. You must return too, follow your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, Do not press me to leave you and to turn back from your company, for wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Wherever you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May Yahweh do this thing to me and more also, if even death should come between us. Seeing that she was determined to go with her, Naomi said no more. The two of them went on until they came to Bethlehem. Their arrival there set the whole town astir, and the women said, "Can this be Naomi?" But she said to them, "Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for Shaddai has marred me bitterly. Filled full I departed, Yahweh brings me back empty. Why call me Naomi then, since Yahweh has given witness against me and Shaddai has afflicted me?" This is how Naomi, she who returned from the country of Moab, came back with Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. I don't know, it kind of changes the way you experience it and read it. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's a me thing. But I really do like this Jerusalem Bible quite a lot, and I've been using it for the past couple of months as I do morning and evening prayer. It's an easy on the eyes layout, and just the simple fact of rendering certain things as poetry changes the way you read it in a good way. You just experience it in a different way. I like that a lot. I just want to compare this other Catholic Bible, the Knox version. On this Jerusalem Bible I found at a Goodwill. This one it was free. This one I did pay used book rates for. And like I said, I don't judge a book by its cover, or I try not to, but isn't that really what covers are for? I mean, as an aside, the cover, I mean, it protects the book, but it also tells you something about the book, and you use that information to judge whether this is a book that you would like. But I digress. The little logo on the side there reminds me of a bat, and that's somewhat upsetting to me. But this Knox Bible, I don't have a lot of experience with. I was just reading the introduction and found a couple of interesting things here. The foreword is by Scott Hahn, who you can often hear on Catholic radio. But there's a little blurb here, a little section that I thought was interesting. It talks about how Ronald Knox was talked into creating a translation from the Vulgate, and this was in the period of time just leading up to some of the changes in the Catholic Church and eventually Vatican II. But during this time period, the Vulgate was still, if a translation didn't come from the Vulgate, it wasn't accepted. That changed rapidly after Knox completed this translation, and that's a whole different story. But there's a little blurb here that I thought was of interest, to me at least. Monsignor Knox's publisher, Frank Sheed, wrote about the dire circumstances that cried out for a radical biblical remedy. The biblical attack on Catholic dogmas did not, after the shock of the attack, destroy Catholic attachment to the dogmas, but it sensibly weakened Catholic attachment to the Bible. A man can never feel quite the same about even the nicest book if he has just been beaten round the head with it. The scriptural insufficiency of Catholics is the last heritage of the Reformation, still to be liquidated. Liquidated it must be. How necessary Scripture is to the life of Catholics. St. Jerome indicated long ago with his phrase, "Ignorance of the Scriptures is ignorance of Christ." There's a lot more there of interest, but just for comparison, I want to read a little bit of that first chapter of the Book of Ruth from the Knox translation. And the Knox translation is from the 30s and 40s, but it sounds in many places much older. It's a beautifully done translation, and that's the Kind of the description you often hear about Knox is it's his command of English and English prose. He's an amazing stylist, but it definitely has an old feel to it. It doesn't sound like you would expect something translated in the 40s to sound. So if we read through the story here, we pick up the part where Orpah has left and gone back to her people, and Naomi is speaking to Ruth. "Here is thy sister-in-law gone back," Naomi said, "back to her own people and the gods they worship. Do thou too go with her." "Nay," said Ruth, "do not press me to go back and leave thee. I mean to go where thou goest, and dwell where thou dwellest. Thy people shall be my people, thy God my God. Whatever earth closes over thee when thou diest shall be my place of death and burial. Due meed of punishment the Lord give me, and more than due, if aught but death part thee and me." Now, just as an aside, or my own personal opinion, that sounds more poetic than the Jerusalem Bible's rendering of that same paragraph. It's a magnificent story either way, but the wording in the Knox version, you talk about how the King James Bible sounds Elizabethan, sounds like a play of Shakespeare. Ronald Knox has that Shakespearean thing down. That is a very lovely rendering, but timeless. I would call it old, but I guess timeless is probably a better word. Again, I've not read much in this. I may switch to the Knox for a little while in my morning and evening prayer just to see how I like that. But the layout it's single column layout. This is a nice edition, by the way. It's Speronius Press. There's almost zero in the way of extras other than that forward. There's nothing in the back at all. No maps, no mini concordance, no nothing. I don't know if this is like a fake leather. It feels like it might be a genuine leather or some such. It appears to be a sewn binding. It has these two kind of mustard and ketchup flimsy ribbons. Not that impressive. Gold gilding all around. There was some damage to that from the previous owner. But nice Bible. Not the biggest print in the world, but I can manage it with my bifocals. But the language used, it is pleasing to me, and maybe it would be to you too. I don't find it as easy to read as Jerusalem Bible, or as pleasing to the eye as the layout of the Jerusalem Bible. If I could get this in this layout, that might be the perfect Bible. I'm not sure. Anyway, just a look at these two Bibles, why I like the Jerusalem Bible, why I'm suddenly finding I'm liking the Knox translation. And as I go through, maybe I'll try some other translations I have sitting around that I haven't given enough attention to, see how I like them. Maybe I'll share that as well. If there's a translation that really grabs you, maybe one that isn't known to a lot of people or isn't as popular, I'd like to hear about that. Thanks for stopping by. Check in to see what I'm doing next time, whether it's more Bible reviews or the prayer book or typewriters or graphite pencils, shortwave radio, whatever I happen to be doing. I always appreciate you stopping by, checking in, watching what you like and liking what you watch. That's all I ask. Thanks for stopping by today. Hope to see you here again next time.